Warm greetings from Chennai Center for China Studies. A series of initiatives have been implemented by the Indian Army over the years to increase the in-house Mandarin proficiency of the defense personnel. There is an increased vigor given to the concept of linguistic support for forces. The need for a better understanding of Chinese language has increased over the years with the deteriorating relations between India and China. Welcome to the C3S Institutional Dialogue on Linguistic Support for Forces with special reference to the Chinese language with Dr. Umesh Kumar Gupta, Assistant Professor of Chinese, Head Chinese Unit, Amity School of Languages, Amity University. We welcome you, sir, to the Institutional Dialogue and to all the audiences who are present here. I now invite Ms. Anantara, Research Officer C3S, to introduce the distinguished speaker for the day. Over to you, Anu.
Thank you, Sapna. Dr. Umesh Kumar Gupta is a distinguished veteran of the Indian Army and currently holds the position of Assistant Professor of Chinese Grade 3 at Amity University, Rajasthan. With an illustrious professional background, Dr. Gupta has served as a Chinese language instructor at the AEC Training College and Center, Pachmari, as well as a Chinese expert and translator at Headquarters, Northern Command, Indian Army. Dr. Gupta's academic achievements have earned a PhD in English with his research focusing on decoding select Chinese military-related texts through English translation. His expertise lies in Chinese-English translation, particularly in the context of military translation. Notably, he is the first Army personnel to hold an MA in Chinese and earn a PhD degree. In recognition of his exceptional services as a Chinese translator and instructor, he has been awarded the Chief of the Army Staff Commendation Card, Certificate for Professional Excellence by the Commandant, AEC Training College and Center, Pachmari, and Commendation Card by General Officer Commanding, 39 Mountain Division. Dr. Gupta's fluency in Mandarin and extensive experience as a Chinese translator extend to domains such as military, technical, legal, and business. Beyond his teaching and research endeavors, Dr. Gupta actively participates in a project dedicated to creating high-quality study materials in the Chinese language for Indian learners. His dedication and expertise greatly contribute to the promotion of Chinese language education and cultural understanding in India. I now kindly request Commodore R.S. Vasan, Director General C3S, to address the audience. Over to you.
Thank you, Anu. First of all, I'm very happy and pleased to see people from AEC. As I was mentioning to Dr. Gupta, I was there just a few weeks ago, and it was a great experience for me to interact with the faculty and the students. This is not a new beginning as such. The realization that there has to be interplay of strategy and linguistic capabilities is something that was evolved over decades. This college AEC itself was started in 1931. When I realized, when I was interacting with them, I was told that we have decades of experience in training people so that they are useful to us in interpreting not just the language, but also looking at it from the strategic point of view. So therefore, I'm very happy that this initiative is very timely, and I must thank Dr. Umesh Gupta, who has got an excellent, illustrious career, which has helped many generations of students and faculty in honing their skills in language. It's no brainer now to say that one must have a thorough knowledge of strategy to be able to interpret what the adversary says or what he means. So this is where not only the knowledge skills are important, but also an understanding of strategy. So from that point of view, I must compliment AEC, because under the able leadership of ADG, General Putarjanam, they started this year to say that we need to get people from the strategy community, other disciplines, who can come and explain to the students and faculty on the relevance of trying to understand strategy, in the context of which the linguistic abilities can explore, what the adversary means, or what he says, or what he does not mean, when he says something. So that can only come by a deep understanding of the language. And this is where people like Dr. Umesh Gupta will be able to bring to fore the importance of not just learning the language, but also getting the backstage right as far as the strategic backdrop is concerned, and the intonations which are there, which are essential when you are trying to understand the enemy, in whatever capacity that there is. So I do not want to take too much of time because I know Dr. Umesh Gupta has got a phenomenal amount of knowledge and experience, and he's come thoroughly prepared for this talk. So I would hand over to him, and I'm hopeful that we'll continue to have these kind of initiatives in the future. And my own visit to AAC has reinforced the belief that think tanks in India, and of course the Chennai Center for China Studies is the only think tank south of in the southern India which is concentrating on China. Otherwise, there you have ICS and other institutions in Delhi. But we would like to complement these efforts to try and understand the entire landscape of strategic challenges, and try and see how language can bridge this gap. Thank you, and over to Dr. Umesh Gupta for the balance proceedings. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Raghuraman ma'am, for introduction, and thanks to Commodore Vasan sir for introductory remark. First of all, I would like to welcome all the audiences present here, and thanks to C3S for giving an opportunity to share my research findings here at this platform. So firstly, I would like to share my PPT. I hope it is visible.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
Okay. So as the topic for today's presentation is linguistic support for forces with a special reference to Chinese language. So there is a sentence which kept on pondering in my mind. That is, how can you be capable of decoding all Chinese documents? So that is ni samanangko chietu shuyo da chungwan wanchen. So I've been associated with translation for a long time. During my tenure in the headquarters Northern Command, and after retirement, I've been associated with the Government of India Translation Project for 2 to 3 years. There I got inspiration to just find out how one can be the best translator. What are the theories? What are the principles behind translation? So that just inspired me to take up a PhD project. So, as we know that there's an important saying by Charles Mann, to have another language is to possess a second soul. Language gives us ability to communicate thoughts, ideas, feelings with others as quickly as possible. It plays many functions such as informative, expressive, and directive. In context of the global village, different languages spoken by the different nationalities pose a serious problem in smooth communication among the people of the world. Here, translation and interpretation plays a critical role in bridging the gap in cross-cultural communication. Today, the role of armed forces is not confined to the national borders, but they play an active role globally. Hence, the importance of learning foreign languages for its diversified missions need no further elaboration. Lily Lindquist, in her paper entitled Why Study Foreign Languages Answered by Our Armed Forces, advocates that foreign languages are playing an important role to win the war and will play an even greater part in helping to establish peace. So the modern warfare increasingly involves huge differences in languages and cultures across the national borders. Knowing how to use the multilingual notion system to serve the war is essential to the war process. Translation has always been an inseparable war machine. The focus on language and culture symbols systems has moved to the center position in many military operations in current globalized context. In this presentation is aimed to deliberate on the issue of linguistic support for forces being exercised in the various countries and draw useful lessons from it. The presentation will also focus on Chinese language support to our forces in light of PhD research project entitled Decoding Select Chinese Military-Related Texts Through English Translation. So first of all, let's talk about the linguistic support for forces. This is basically a new term. In Ukraine, the concept of the linguistic support for forces was proposed by Balabin in mid-1990s to generalize a set of tasks related to the professional activities of a military translator. He has just given broad scope of a translator. It's not simply translating the document, but so many other roles are included in the translator's job. Victor V. Balabin, in his paper entitled Theoretical Foundation of Military Translation in Ukraine, comprehensively discusses the topic of linguistic support for forces. Balabin defines this new concept of linguistic support for forces as a complex of special measures, tasks, procedures, and the processes of practical and fundamental nature in military political, military technical, and military special field of armed forces of Ukraine, which are planned and carried out to accomplish the intercultural, that is communicative and mediational, lingo-geographical, that is informational and analytic, military terminological, normative and codifying, lingo-pedagogical, didactic and diagnostic, and lingo research, that is scholarly, functions that require military professional level of bilingual philological competence of performance. Next is Balabin further advocates that the military interpreters and translators will henceforth be the primary actor in linguistic assistance for the forces. At this juncture, it is worth thinking about the concept of military translation and or interpretation and military interpreter translator for a moment. For the armed forces, translation and interpretation is at the heart of their linguistic support. So the under-mentioned one is more precise definition, armed forces translation and interpretation, the main component of the military linguistic support, which boils down to intercultural and bilingual communication in form of oral, written, sequential, simultaneous mediation, adopted transcoding, retell and narrate, referencing, editing, intonation of military general, military political, military technical documents. Military translators and interpreters. Military translator and interpreter is an official philologist who possesses bilingual, communicative, primary, mediatory, and intercultural, cognitive, psycholinguistic, and other generic and specific professional competencies to perform his or her functions and duties under normal and extreme military service conditions. Victor V. Balabin, in his paper entitled Linguistic Support for Forces, advocates the LSF system that comprises the translation support, military local history activities, military terminological activity, lingo-pedagogical activity, and language research activity. The main subject of the linguistic support for force system is a military translator. The basis of LSF system is translation support, which consists in implementation of military translators, intercultural communication, and mediation activity in the form of oral, written, consecutive, simultaneous interpretation, adopted, transcoding, translation, narration, abstracting, annotating, and editing of text of military general, military political, and military technical and military special subjects. First is military regional. Studies is an information analytical activity of a military translator, which consists in the systematic search, collection, processing, and presentation of the information of military region and linguistic region nature in the format of a complete information product. This is additional duty, which we generally don't, our translator don't perform. So this is military region, knowledge of a particular military region. If we talk about in terms of Chinese language, so the military region is knowledge of Xinjiang region, like Tibet or other specific region, complete knowledge set. That is the responsibility of translator. Then comes Military terminology. Military terminology is the normative codifying activity of military translator. So it's the duty of military translator to compile the military terminology and expand it. And in today's time, it is the digitized dictionary is required, which should can be accessed within short time. Lingo-pedagogical activity is a didactic and diagnostic activity of a military translator. So the Balabin says that a translator is also a teacher, a language teacher. It involves the first planning, organizing, and conducting the foreign language classes, as well as in assessing, testing, and certifying foreign language competencies of servicemen and employees. So this teaching role is also there for translator. Then a linguistic research activity. As a component of LSF, requires the military translator to conduct research work. This is a very important aspect. Like if you will not research, then you cannot develop your courses. So research means I've just elaborated this point research in the next slide in the field of LSF according to the plan and the manner prescribed in the relevant guidelines. In NATO countries, linguistic support is usually limited to purely translational and interpretive activities of military translator. In most of the countries, this role is very limited, but Balabin has described a very comprehensive role. So next is linguistic research activity as a component of linguistic support for forces. So what sort of research to be done? Linguistic support for forces can be interpreted as the referring to the language support service provided to the military and armed force personnel who require assistance in their linguistic language related tasks. In this context, linguistic research activity can be seen as the component of the linguistic support for forces. Linguistic research help in understanding the language requirements. So what will be the language requirements in what scenario? Like what will be the Chinese language requirement when we talk about the communication role, we talk about intelligence gathering, we talk about technical knowledge of technology, of weapon, when we talk about the establishing good foreign relationship with Chinese PLA. So what sort of requirement is there? And what are the challenges faced by the military person in their professional roles? So we have to do research on that. Then it involves the studying the specific language need, terminology, and communication style used within the military context. Linguistic research activity within the linguistic support for forces typically encompasses the following aspects. First is language analysis. Which type of language is used in the military context? So that is the need analysis. What is the need? This is a very important point. In today's informatized warfare and intelligentized warfare era, how the need of language is changing. All right. So what will be the nature of intelligence gathering is just changing. So we have to be clear about what will be our future needs. We have to get the need. Then you have to do research and design a course, run a course, and see and evaluate the product. Means what translator you have trained, you have to evaluate his skills and competencies accordingly. So this is a cyclic action. So next is training and curriculum development. That should be based on research, translation and interpretation, and communication technology, and use of other technologies. Then views of the scholars of the military interpreter and translator in various countries, like Catherine Baker. She just says that content that interpreters help in conversation during meeting, patrol, interrogation, provided knowledge related to culture, history, society of area, extended language support. So these are extended roles of a translator, which are mentioned here. Then Thien Luo is augmenting combat power, military translation in China, Burma, India theater. In this paper, he says that this paper draws upon the theories about the combat power, defines the military translation as an intangible factor of combat power, including information and knowledge, and proposes a framework to map out how translation acts upon the internal mechanism of war. A very important paper, which also concludes that military translation can help reshape the combat power relations between the parties involved in the conflict and ultimately influence the outcome of the war. So to that extent, it is so important that it can influence the outcome of war. Then Mona Baker, Professor Mona Baker from UK, she has written a paper entitled Interpreters and Translators in War Zone Narrative and Narrators, and she stressed that there is a very less research done on the translators and interpreters in war zone, and they are never shown in the military history. Then Foote, in his paper entitled Foreign Language in Intelligence Work, highlights the importance of the use of translators in intelligence gathering in war and translating decrypted coded messages and seized enemy documents. Locally contracted translators and interpreters were the victim during Iraq and Afghan wars. Interpreters and translators also worked as the chronicler and the narrator of war, and sometimes as proxy journalists. Hilary Foote maintains that foreign languages are integral part of intelligence, and he studied the institutional language policies made targeting intelligence work. Linguists working for intelligence also have loyalty issues. Accurate intelligence is impossible to be drawn without strengthening our linguistic infrastructure. This is a very important point. Without strengthening our linguistic infrastructure, we cannot fulfill that objective of intelligence gathering. Then is operational language support, which is a holistic approach that includes the language training, translation and interpretation, cultural awareness and training, language analysis and intelligence, document and documentation management, language-enabled technology and tools, liaison with host nations and allied forces, language support planning and coordination. Then requirements for military translators. What are the specific requirements for military translator? So Kokot is very expert in this great scholar. He says that a military translator translating military and military related texts. There are two types of texts. Military texts are confidential texts, which are written by professional for professionals, not coming in open media. But military related texts are available in open media, and they can be accessed by anyone. But these are also related with the military topics. Needs to have a strong thematic competence. The person who is translating should have a strong thematic competence. Suppose you are a Chinese translator, you must know about Chinese People's Liberation Army. If you don't know about their structure, their weapon system, their all organization, their party system within their military, you can't translate. So the thematic knowledge is most important. She should have adequate knowledge of military weapon, equipment, facilities, rank structure, subordination, and military procedure. Translator must also have knowledge of military jargon, slang terms, and must be well versed with the warfare and army. She or he must be expert in military terminology and should also be familiar with the terminology in IT, economics, and politics. So it's not only on military terminology you should have to be expert, but you should also be aware of the IT, economics, and politics. They must possess the knowledge of the current issue related to global security and military operations. In reality, it's not possible for a translator to be specialist in all fields. So, will the general understanding of domain knowledge be sufficient? It is a question of debate. So, a translator, he should have encyclopedic knowledge. He should be next to God. He can translate everything. So that is the assumption, that is the requirement, that is the expectation from the translators. So first thing is for translator to have a comprehensive knowledge, encyclopedic knowledge of a particular domain you are working in, like that is military. And besides military, you should also have knowledge of other domains, because translation in one article you will find all sort of terminology. So that is the requirement. LSP translators should also possess the intercultural competence. That is to be aware of the cultural aspect of two armies. It's not society, social culture, but you must know the culture of Chinese PLA, right? Start studying, because culture and language are interwoven, right? Language is the carrier of culture. So whatever even text you will find, there will be cultural aspects and you should be able to decode it. So how you will get these cultural aspects? That's by visiting the country, by watching their videos, military videos and clippings. We can just get the maximum knowledge about their culture or study research. Requirement of the military translator, multi-meaning of abbreviation is a problem, and translator has to seek the expert advice rather than merely relying on the dictionary. This expert advice is very important. For a translator, if you are not able to get a correct equivalent of a word, a particular source word, then you have to go and do online research either, or you have to go to expert and find out. If it is a strategic word, some high strategic or tactical word, you have to go to some senior army officer and ask him. Right? This collaboration, this sort of collaboration is very important. I will also discuss this collaboration later stage. The faculty of military translator is not limited to the thematic competence. Knowledge of military activity and advanced linguistic competence are prerequisite for the accurately decoding the military-related text. Faithfulness and terminological precision are the two main expectations of the users of the translated military text. Pragmatic adaptation of the source text is rarely acceptable. So, need of the proper training of military translators. There may be the adverse consequences of the wrong translation of military text. This is sure. Your work is extremely important. These translations are crucial for strategic decision making. Your translation, on the basis of your translation, important strategic decision can be taken. Even war may be declared. Even very significant action can be taken by the military. So your translation is that important. So hence, relevant translator training is of extreme importance. It is not that you know language, Chinese language, you can be a good translator. No. There are other things, other competencies which you need to build, then only you can be a good translator. And these competencies we'll discuss in the next slide. So extreme important, and this training should be imparted at the graduate and post-graduation level, translation programs. So MA in translation and interpretation program is the most suitable program for you to become a good translator, a good interpreter. If the military-related texts are precisely translated, then the general public may get inaccurate, faulty information on the matter of great public interest. Then the students specializing in the various fields may also get the expertise in translated military-related texts, which is current competitive field. Excessive literary is to be avoided, and borrowing by transcription should be avoided. Then now let's talk about the research in the field of linguistic support in various countries. So military translation research in USA. So let's talk about USA. So Tristan Hopper is a scholar. He has just talked about the interpreters and translators perform various significant tasks in US Army. Their importance can be guessed from the statement that US Army did not even fire a single shot without assistance of the bilinguals. So the role of bilingual or translator is that important. Then translators are needed to establish link with the local population, get information from them, get supplies and negotiating prices, and help in talking with the local dignitaries. They help in the issuing propaganda material. Translators' role is crucial in interpreting the enemy messages, convincing them to surrender, getting all sort of intelligence, active role in diplomacy, and putting forward own standpoint in the TV debates, and they act as the mediator in the meeting and establishing link to the joint maneuvers. US soldiers, while being inducted in the enemy area, are issued with a list of common phrases. The role of interpreter and translator in Iraq and Afghan was very significant. To fulfill the requirement, US employed a large number of contracted civilian interpreters because they fell short of these type of interpreters. So they have just contracted civilian interpreters. The USA considers these linguistic as significant as critical weapon system. You see, I have double highlighted this word and be very happy to read it, critical weapon system. So gentlemen, those who are involved in translation work, translators, they are not, their role is not simple as XYZ. It is very, very important, and you are just like a critical weapon system. If you understand yourself a critical weapon system, you will get energy, you will get motivation to work hard. Because a Chinese interpreter or translator is a very hard work. Then only you can doing hard work, research, then only you can make a good translator. So this is a good motivating word we find. US forces maintain around 14,000 linguists all over the world. Then Defense Language Transformation Roadmap of 2005. USA issued two documents, 2005. Another is language skill, regional expertise, and cultural capabilities are all element of Department of Defense Strategic Plan 2011 and 16. So there are two important documents which we can study and take lesson from them. Comprehensive documents, they talk about vision, assumption, objective, and goals are the four major elements addressed in this plan. Special forces as well as for all forces, and emphasize the importance of language and local culture, and states that these can make the mission successful. Then Chinese scholars, Wan Chiu Fang, he has done in-depth study of these plans and taken some important lessons. Right, there he mentions that there are two changes made herein in strategic plan and roadmap. There are two changes. The content is more elaborate, and the definition of foreign language ability is much clearer. The need of foreign language is made more proactive. In this paper, one further mentions the three lessons for the Chinese military. First is to constantly revise and understand the foreign language capabilities. Focus on resolving issues related to the mechanism, system, and standards. Enhance the use of multiple language resources. So these all three lessons are applicable for us as well, right? We have to learn, or we have to just copy these lessons. They are equally applicable for Indian forces as well. Next is Defense Language Transformation Roadmap. US has got a web search system for language preparation index. It's a very important system which also discuss the supply and demand analysis and the risk management of foreign language capabilities. The US Department of Defense also invests the huge amount of money every year to systematically develop the foreign language capabilities of the US military. And the 4 points that Chinese military can learn from the US military. The foreign language ability is an important as good equipment, again, and is one of the core capability of the army. Develop planning, a detailed planning, and a detailed and actionable solution for improving the foreign language ability of the army. Perfect management, forming a top-down management organization for implementation of the roadmap. The supervision to be effective, and effectiveness of the implementation of the roadmap to be properly supervised. Then here we see that this strategy roadmap, there are some important points are given. It's not possible to cover all. Here we are mentioning presently there is a Army's machine foreign language translation system. The US has got this system. It's got two uses. One provides the two-way real-time speech-to-speech translation, and other one provides the text-to-text translation of social media, web pages, and electronic documents. So this is a very handy system they have got. We can also develop these type of systems for our forces. Next is military translation research in Ukraine and Russia. As we discussed, Ukraine and Russia has always been forerunners in this type of research on military translation. A few of the PhD dissertations in the field of military translation have been defended by various scholars. So, military translation research in UK, British National Project. So, the University of Reading in United Kingdom, together with the University of Southampton and the Lunchao Imperial War Memorial Museum, completed a 3-year national project in April 2011. The Language at War, Policies and Practices of Language Contacts in Conflicts. So this project mainly conducted in-depth and systematic research on the following topics: the official foreign language policy adopted by the government, military, and multilateral agencies, the theoretical framework proposed by the language policy, the foreign language experience of the personal and organizational involved in the conflict, the language in the context of war, translation and war, the role played by the language experts, interpreters, translators in warfare, language coordination in joint operations, and English training in international peacekeeping. So during the 3 years research period, 2 years after the conclusion of the topic, the research group released a large number of research results. These include monogram, papers, etc. So these are the different papers released talking about the various aspects. Then we have got the Murray and Wang Xiaoping in his paper entitled "The Status Quo and Prospects of Military Translation Studies," talking on the current status of military translation research at home and abroad. So these are various points. Translation service are one of the core. Then any historical interpretation of the practice and discourse of the translation and interpretation shows that translation has always been an inseparable war machine. So translation and interpretation during the Opium War, there have been a very active role. China and British side were highly dependent on translators and interpreters. Interpreters, military advisors, and local magistrates, their role were different and of high status. They were also given good incentives. In China, translators were regarded as traitors and evildoers and condemned at Hanqian. The outcome of the Opium War would have been different had Chinese side employed trained translators and interpreters. With important point, so that can now let's talk about Chinese scholar Wu Shufan. He has said that we are translating what we should translate, what is required. So first is military theory translation. So if we were to talk about in Chinese context, so we must translate Chinese military theory. So Chinese military theory, we got two important books, Chinese Way and Chan Lui Shui. So strategy of campaign and strategy of science. So these two books are there in Chinese. It's a translation is also available. So these translation and these books are just important for any translator to just study the military text and enhance your vocab military terminology. So these are two. So first of all, military theory translation. Second comes the military technical translation. So technical document, their weapon, equipment, technology, everything translated. And China did it. China translated all the Western technology into Chinese. And that's why they are so advanced today in their war industry. So military intelligence translation, of course, is a very significant translation. With the help of translation, we can get intelligence. There are two means in the public and secret means. So publicly available intelligence which you get from media, this will come by translation. And by secret means, we get some documents. These are also required to be translated. Then next is the military foreign related translation. This is required when negotiation takes place. So either we win war or lose war, we have to go to negotiation table. And on the negotiation table, translator plays a very crucial role. So these four roles are very significant, given by the Wu Shufan. We can take lesson from them and train our troops, our interpreters in these all four domains. Then role of Chinese language support to Indian armed forces. First is communication and interpreting, intelligence gathering, border security, surveillance, cultural understanding and diplomacy, cyber security and cyber warfare. Enhancing military intelligence, special force operation, signal intelligence, human intelligence, special forces operation and covert operation, infiltration, everywhere translation is required. If it is in Chinese context, yes, Chinese English translator are playing crucial role in all these important aspects. Then how? Okay. Then challenge and complexities of Chinese language. Chinese language, we must understand this is the most difficult language. It's no doubt. How it is difficult? Writing system. It is written with the help of characters. A translator need to master at least 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 characters. Then only he or she can translate comfortably. So that is one difficulty. Tone. Tones are there. There are 4 tones which are used for every word. Slight variation in tones, it makes meaningless. But it's not that problem. When you speak, Chinese can understand by context and whatever. It's not the big problem. Grammar structure is there. Simple grammar, then there is advanced grammar. Translator her master ball. Character stroke order is there. Homophones is the biggest problem. Homophones means one sound has got 100 meaning. If you say share, there are 100 meaning. And this affects your listening ability. So listening skill is the most difficult skill in Chinese. That's why interpreters sometimes fail. They are not able to understand what Chinese is saying because one sound has got 100 meaning. Which meaning will be there in context is very difficult. So for that, solution is practice, practice, practice. Solution is simulated training, real situation training, and all that. Then regional variation, character ambiguity, cultural context. These are other issues. Chinese language training at various levels, certificate of proficiency level. When we are providing Chinese language training to our troops, we have to keep the organizational requirement in the back of mind. Sometimes we give training on the basis of civilian course structure, right? It is not oriented to the military requirement. It must be oriented. And if it is not, do it. Like I have written a soldier's handbook for learning Chinese. This is the book which sees the requirement. What our soldiers are required to do on the border. They need to interact with Chinese. They have to attend the border personnel meeting. They have to play football, volleyball with them. They have to just join military exercise. So all these situations, I have made 20 lessons out of that. So these type of books to be taught at a certificate of proficiency level to give military orientation to your course. Diploma level and graduate level. Similarly, we have to learn military like subject. We have to learn PLA. Put a subject PLA, right? Teach them basic. So that will help. Chinese literature will not help. Remove it. Chinese history will not help. So remove all these things and include these important. Then is MA in Chinese, which are courses. Our some officers and men are just doing. It's a good course. But here also some military course, a military terminology course, military text to be translated. And we should have some courses based on Chinese military and should be taught to our military translators. Then PhD in Chinese. Yes, we need scholars. Not one, we need 10 or 20. In all forces, we need scholars who can do research. Well, I've already talked about the research activity. So that research will be done by these scholars who are PhD degree holders. Then the research to be carried out assess the requirement of our forces in different scenario and the training to be based on the organizational requirement. The curriculum to be specially developed based on the above requirements. Study material to be prepared based on the research in the domain. More emphasis to be given to the translation and interpretation practice in simulated and real work environment. Then let's come to just one more important thing. This is the crux of my research. I've done literature review in Chinese, English translation. I've done literature review in military translation field and then made a new model for our military translators, our military translation. What is? This is very important. I would like to take 10 more. May I take 10 more minutes, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's see. This is very important. Please note it down. Military translation is a sort of a specialized translation like legal, business, and technical, etc. Applying the PACT model of translation competence. In military field, we find that the military translator needs to possess the such competences as bilingual competence in Chinese and English. Bilingual competence means Chinese must be strong. English, you should have strong knowledge, in-depth knowledge of English as well. The extra linguistic competence. Under this competence, the military translator should possess the thematic knowledge, which I've already discussed. Thematic knowledge means about Chinese military, about the world militaries. That is thematic knowledge. Under this competence, a military translator should possess the thematic knowledge about the military of the target country. A translator working in Chinese military-related text must have a thorough knowledge of Chinese military as well as modern development in the world militaries. Translator should also possess the cultural knowledge about the organizational structure, strategy, and tactics of Chinese PLA. Besides this, translator need to have encyclopedic knowledge in all the fields, including politics, economics, science and technology, legal, IT, etc. Military translator need to possess the translation knowledge subcompetence. Means it is not like if you have learned language, you are a good translator. No, you should know the translation knowledge, knowledge of translation theories. That's equally important. And then one subcompetence is instrumental subcompetence. It has got two parts. One is the knowledge of modern technologies applied in the field of translation. That is MT, machine translation, CAT, computer aided translation, management of term rates, project management, software, use of concordancer, use of monolingual, bilingual, and comparable corpora, DTP software, and other language processing related tools and techniques. They should also know the skill on handling various types of documents and files. This is the second aspect. So then they must also know the modern means of online communication. Strategic subcompetence means applying all competences and solving the real problem which our translator is encountering. And then other aspect is psychophysiological component. Then military translator need to develop the top level research competence to mine the related information. If you encounter with a word you don't know meaning, go and do research, online research. So your research skills should be of high order. You should know how to use the search engines, advanced search options, information acquisition and process. They must also develop the source from which they can get the expert advice. I've already talked, you should have sources. You are translating an engineering article, right? You should have engineer friend, right? You should have a military strategist as your friend, right? You can access, approach him and ask. So this type of system, in like project, an international organization, there is a forum on which you can pose any question and that will quickly replied by your fellow translators. So this type of system mechanism can be developed in our armed forces as well. So next is translation standards. There are two important standards, that is faithfulness and expressiveness. These are two pillars in the translation. You have to translate source language text accurately as per the into target language text. Means it will be faithful, accurate. And on the other hand, expressiveness. It will be in idiomatic English. We are translating from Chinese to English. It should be idiomatic English. Then translation theories. You should know the knowledge of these theories like foreignization and domestication. Then scopus in military translation is very significant. Scopus means purpose of translation. You are translating a document, what is the purpose? It is just for normal reading or it is just very significant for on which some strategic action can be taken, right? So if a strategic action can be taken, so your strategy will be different. You will adopt a different strategy for translating that. Okay. So the contrastive study of Chinese and English is most important. This is a course for a translator. Means how these Chinese and English are different. What is the difference in sentence structure? If you study, then you can be a good translator. So this is a course. Cultural element in military translation is very significant. And the translation process. This is very significant. The translation process suggested by the European Standard 15038 can be applied in the military domain. They said that standards suggested a 6-step translation process, including. This is very important. I would like to emphasize on this point. You should know that actual translation process is, firstly, the translator will translate the text. Then he or she himself will check it. Third is revision will be done by the senior translator, knowledgeable translator. And one step is review. Review will be done by the domain expert. We will not have a knowledge of Chinese language. He will be domain expert. He will see whether all the text is relevant, reasonable, logically arranged, or there is some problem. right? And he or she will find out problem area, give it back to the translator, and it can be rectified. Then comes proofreading and final verification. So if there is some important document to be translated, you have to adopt the 6-step translation process. It is not that you are given document and you are final authority. No, you are not the final authority. There are two people sitting above you, a senior translator and the domain expert. It is their role to just check it. So this is very important process. Then is use of corpus of military related text. This is a very important lesson I would like to just tell you. Who will teach you this to become a good translator? Will China teach you? Most probably not, right? You have to learn yourself. How will you learn? This corpus will help you. Corpus means the collection of digital text, right? These are 3 types. First is monolingual, bilingual, and multilingual. Monolingual means all Chinese text you have to collect from different type of fields and read it, right? Collect the terminology, enhance your knowledge. Then parallel corpus. Parallel corpus are text and its translated version together. It is just like Bible for you. Keep on studying. A scholar has said a translator can invest 50% time on doing this, on referring the parallel corpus. Then is multilingual, translation. So this is then developing, maintenance, updating the Chinese English military term, role of Chinese English. Well, there are so many other use of technology, IC tools in translation, very significant. Training of military translators. So now I will come to end. It's a recommendation. There are a few important recommendations which are based on my experience of teaching or association with the language and the research which are conducted in the last 4 years. Firstly, to establish a translation and interpretation institute for catering the requirement of our armed forces, utilizing the existing expertise and the pooling the resources. The promote the research on training Chinese translators and interpreters for our forces, create a separate cadre for linguists, full-time dedicated to the language-related duties. Chinese is the most difficult language. It will not work. You trained an officer or man for 2 years and send for where the language is not used, he will forget everything. So it should be full-time linguist cadre to be created. Then promote the research on the assessing various linguist requirement for our forces and training efficient translators, interpreters, teachers, and scholars as per these requirements. So firstly, map out our requirements and then train our linguists accordingly. Promote the research from Chinese language sources and build capacities in this domain. This is very important. We should be able to we should be capable of accessing the Chinese sources. Generally, we take the English sources and do research and complete it. No, that will not work. If you're a translator, you should try to develop, try to do research from Chinese sources. What are the Chinese sentiment? How Chinese see Indian people, right? India. So these type of research can be done through Chinese sources only. You should just develop capacities to include this type of research. Then promote the collaboration and joint multidisciplinary research. This is the most important topic. I said in Chinese, like ancient time, what happens? Our Buddhism gone from India to China. So our Indian translator who know Sanskrit and Chinese, a bit of Chinese, they have learned, means this translation was done by 2 people. Indian who has a bit of knowledge of Chinese and Buddhist Sanskrit, they have got full command on this. So they just explain the things to another translator, Chinese translator who has got expertise in Chinese, but a bit of knowledge of Sanskrit, right? So one person explaining and other person is writing. So this translation is done by the 2 people. They work in collaboration. So this collaboration we can apply in our context, means when we want to translate a very sensitive document, very important documents, that collaboration is required. Some strategic expert sitting next to you and you are a translator, with collaboration you can translate that document. Even in today's time, there are collaboration of 3-4 experts are required. Chinese language expert, defense and strategic expert, software engineer, AI, ML, data scientists, etc. are required to do research on various aspects of PLA modernization. They will sit together, then only they can decode certain aspects. Single man job is not there. So the value our Chinese language experts and encourage and recognize their efforts is the most important point. Value our Chinese language experts and encourage and recognize their efforts. It's not simple job. When I've done my course, there was a saying among our peer groups. They say wise people never learn Chinese because it's the toughest language. You have to put in efforts, but sometime you'll get credit for it. Otherwise, most of the time it is treated at par with other languages, which are very simple. So, but it's not that. This can be associated with our our mission, our national spirit. Yes, we are Indian, we can do everything. And that should be the quest. And if you got that sort of motivation, then nothing is impossible. So this, but still, we have to value these resources, Chinese language experts, encourage, they recognize their efforts in mastering the Mandarin, one of the toughest languages of the world, give them proper incentive and rewards for their achievement and excellence in this domain. Then just one more is right direction to be given to research conducted by our Chinese language scholars. In our university, there are scholars who are doing research on various topics, on some topics which are important for China, not for India. So that sort of orientation, that sort of direction to be given these type of scholars to do research on these important topics which are useful for our nation. Though like academia and research never sees the national border, it's just for humanity and it's there. But somewhere when there is a crunch of resources, we have to channelize these resources, give a proper direction in our national interest. So they provide the grant to the Chinese language experts working in academia. Yes, it's not one-man game. Whatever project I have done, a lot of things are lying there. I have developed a corpus. It is to be developed to a big corpus requires huge amount of money. Right? That I'm not getting. I just developed a military terminology, very important, modern military terminology, 3,200 words. But these to be developed with 30,000. Requires time, energy, support, funds, and all that. So organize seminars, conferences, and then technical experts, software expert, data scientists, space scientists, military strategists should be trained in Chinese language. And training a pool of sharp, last point, but is most important, training a pool of sharp Chinese translators, interpreters, instructors, and scholars on the line of this ideology and training of special forces. I remember one of my instructors, very first day of my Chinese class said, "Gentlemen, this is mental commando course." I still remember those words. Yeah, of course, this is a mental commando course. So they are mental commandos. Their training, they are grooming to be based on that ideology, based on that pride. They should feel that they are from SF, right? Special forces, invincible. So that sort of, if you give that sort of honor, then definitely we can achieve the aim which I have just mentioned in first list. Then this is the sum of the work which I have done. Professional Handbook for Learning Chinese, Volume 1 and 2. This is the short course which I have developed. Within 2 months, you can learn Chinese, and that is communicative Chinese. All grammar is given. Learning Chinese, a soldier's handbook for learning Chinese, most important book. Here the pronunciation is given in Hindi, every word. So our soldier can read it and go and speak without learning Finnish and everything. And this second part has got 20 lessons in different situations. This is the a model of research which we need at a larger scale. So that book. Then I've written another book, is a Practical Chinese for Military Operations. This is the book of Yale University. 24 military operations are there of Second World War, written in Chinese with translation with Finnish, and this book is ready as an publication instead. And this is my PhD project as the lecture, and these are some of the papers which I have written. So in conclusion, we see that the concept of the linguistic support for forces was first used by the Victor N. Bolavin of Ukraine, And the military translation is the main object of it. And translation has always been an inseparable war machine for the armed forces. Translator interpreter is the heart of their linguistic support. We have seen the very broader role of the Chinese translator, not only translating the text, but also maintaining the history, pedagogical, lingo-pedagogical activity, and linguistic research activity, etc. So the need of proper training of military translation is highly emphasized, and research on the military translation is various countries have been conducted, in which the US considers linguistics as the significant as a critical weapon system. The US issued 2 documents, roadmap and strategic plan. We can take lesson, and finally, from the above study, we may draw lesson as per our national conditions and strengthen our foreign language capabilities and extend a robust linguistic support to our armed forces. Jai Hind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for a very informative discussion on the relevance of language for the defense personnel, and also giving your recommendations, which are very valuable. Before moving on to the question answer session, may I request the audience to post your questions in the chat box so that we will be directing each question to the speaker. So now I request Ms. Shruti, Research Officer C3S, to take over the question answer session.
Thank you, Sapna. So we'll be moving on to the Q&A session. So the first question of the day is from Mr. Prakash Morana. So he basically wants to know the scope for those possessing a PG diploma in Chinese language. So can you please answer this question?
This is scope of pursuing PG diploma in Chinese, right?
Yes, sir.
So PG diploma in Chinese is actually this course is running in Delhi University, and they've got 2 layers in intensive diploma, and yes, after just doing this diploma, you can work as a translator, you can work as a Chinese linguist. Industry also, where was not very high requirements are there, like simple language related proficiency is required, so you can get job there as well. So yes, it is fruitful, it is useful to just go ahead with this PG diploma in Chinese. Right.
Thank you, sir. Our second question of the day is from Rayan Dayal. So he wants to know the names of the 2 books you've mentioned as, a must-read for translators. Can you please tell us the names of the books?
Books for translators.
Yes, sir. A must-read for translators.
Okay. Yes. Actually, 2 books which you must use as a translators. Actually, I have written total 4 books. First is 2 Professionals Handbook for Learning Chinese, Volume 1 and Volume 2. One of the characteristics of these 2 books is that every text given in Chinese is also given in English in the form of translation. So if you want to develop your translation abilities, so this can work as a corpus, that a parallel corpus, right? So you can just read it, enhance your vocab, and you also see how it is translated, what grammatical aspect is used. So the volume 1 and volume 2 is very comprehensive. It is of course very useful. In 2030 day-to-day situation, all dialogues are given, right? So all the Chinese dialogues are given in English as well, right? It's a translated version. So this is useful, and practical, that 1 book I mentioned, Practical Chinese for Military Operation. This is of course a very good book. Here also the Chinese text in characters it is given, and then translation is given. So if you read these two texts side by side, you can improve your this is analysis of language. This is how this sentence is translated, what grammatical aspects are used, and what vocab is used, terminology is what cultural aspects are used. So you can learn a lot of lessons from it. And these are beautiful 24 lessons. If you want to just interested in military domain, right? So this is the best book for it. So these are three books, and other papers are also written for translators, translation technology in translation, and then other like subtitling translation. So you can also read these papers, which are useful. Yeah, I hope I have answered your question.
Thank you, sir. Before we move on to the next question, can you please stop sharing your screen, sir?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Uh,
Just one. Yeah.
yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sai Surya wants to know if the Chinese have taken similar efforts to learn Indian languages.
Chinese taken similar efforts learning Indian languages.
Yes, sir.
No, actually, the efforts taken in learning Chinese language are entirely different from learning Indian languages, because Indian languages have got scripts, alphabet, and there are no alphabets in Chinese language, right? Every word you have to learn the characters, it's a pronunciation which is different. You have to just learn side by side, and you have to learn the correct sound, tone, right? And listening practice, you have to do a lot of practice to master all four skills, and even translation. So as far as efforts are required, definitely means 2, 3, 4 times more efforts are required in comparison to learning any Indian or foreign languages. So that is it. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is from a senior research officer, Ms. Sapna. She wanted to know the efficiency, how efficient is the AI tools in terms of translating text from Chinese language?
Yeah, very good question. Nowadays, this AI tools like ChatGPT, which is been introduced, and these are giving very good, surprising results. I've just used it also. But the English text and giving Chinese text is 80 to 90% correct. But these tools, authenticity is not there, whether it is Google translation or it's a chat gpt. It is not authentic. Some point of time at some places they are not giving correct equivalents, like cultural aspects are there. When there is a long sentence, like grammatically complex sentence are there, they may not give exact translation. So yes, of course, this type of translation through AI tools can be used for gesting purpose, not for accurate. For gesting and getting the importance of text. Suppose you are you want to know how important this text is. Put it there, you will get a gist. Understand it. Okay, you see, it's the most important. Then you go for the authentic translation by a human translator, right? So this can be used for research purpose as well. You can put any material into this, you will get just 80-90% correct. That I see. The surprising use. So this can be used for, but authentic 100% is not authentic. If you use this text for some important decision making, for some important tasks, you must go for verification by a human translator. That's it.
Thank you, sir. So our next question is from AEC Training College and Center. So student wants to know the role of cyber linguists in the Indian Army.
Role of cyber linguist. Cyber linguist, I haven't done research on specifically on that. But if you talk about the cyber warfare or cyber security, right, hacking and all that, which is the important part of warfare, right? Because China has developed a strategic support force, and it has got three components: cyber warfare, space warfare, and electromagnetic warfare. So cyber warfare means cyber attacks, which can be like done to the enemy country, and can just collapse, right, paralyze entire system. So when we want to protect it, suppose we see in the context of China, we want to protect it, we must know the language. We must know the Chinese language. So the expert like M.Tech, B.Tech in computer science, they must know Chinese. Those who know Chinese are considerable good knowledge, right? They have done in their field, right? Done work in their field. They can be proved as a good asset. They can save us. Sometime when I take computer science classes, B.Tech classes, and teaching Chinese, I used to motivate them. Gentlemen, the time will come, may come when you may be called the warriors of the nation, right? It means like, yes, if you learn Chinese, then definitely you can counter their attacks. You can just defend ourselves from the enemy attacks. So definitely Chinese language proficiency plays a role, but this specific word, cyber linguist, I'm not sure. I'm seeing that. Yes.
Yes, sir. Moving on to the next question. It's from the same institution. They want to know the ratio in which time it should be distributed considering the LSRW aspects.
LS.
RW aspects.
What is the full form? May I just
Ask me.
Sir, we would request the AEC Training College and Center to elaborate on this question, please, for better clarity. Thank you. Moving on to the next question from Nirmal Nirmohi. He wants to know how to involve the Indian Chinese trained translators and interpreters to utilize their expertise for making Chinese language learning a better experience, and how to put the recommendations into practice.
Okay. So yeah. So the previous question is about the listening skills. What is the full question? Yeah. Yeah. Just.
Okay, that is, what's the ratio in which time it should be distributed considering the listening, speaking, reading, and writing aspects?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So now it's clear. Sorry, LSRW. Yeah. So listening, reading, writing, in language learning, right? Your listening comes your this most important and most difficult part, right? Generally, it is overlooked, and this is directly linked to your interpretation. When will you listen and understand, then you can interpret. And this is the most difficult because of what? One sound has got 100 meaning, right? So unless your ears are tuned to it, the person who go to China, study there for 1 year or 2 years, they are always beneficial because their ears are tuned to the Chinese sound. But you are learning Chinese in simulated environment. So definitely you devote more energy, more time to listening skill. Listening, speaking skill, yeah, of course, equally important. It's used in your interpretation, conversation, writing, reading, writing. Reading is reading the text, understanding it, and writing is equally important. But in today's time, writing is very less. We hardly write it. We just type it or somewhere just copy it and paste it. So writing skill is less. But mastering the characters, which has got two parts: recognition and writing. You are able to write and recognize. So this mastering the character will remain equally important, because when you will go online, you will find characters. So I hope equally important, all are equally important, but the listening you have to give more time, right? So that you can be a good interpreter. Your learning Chinese may be successful. Listening, speaking, yes, speaking Chinese with correct sound tone will also come by practice. Definitely you have to invest time. Reading the text, maximum text, there is no limit. Right, understanding it, enhancing your vocab. There is no limit of vocab. 4,000, 5,000 vocab, no. Keep on listening. It may go to 10,000, 20,000, and you yourself don't know how much vocab it is. Then only that builds your schema, right? And that schema will help you in translation, in functioning, like working. And writing itself requires time. Characters, in nowadays we write 50 times, do a lot of homework. Now people started writing less homework. We have filled the 20 register. I still remember 24 core registers. So gentlemen, writing also you have to put in a lot of time, then only you can master the character. So all the skills are important, equally distribute time, but which are the skills are ignored, which are just you have to give more time. So that is my. Yes, ma'am. Next.
Okay, so we are again moving back to Wing Commander Nirmal Nirmohi's question. He basically wanted to know about how to operationalize the expertise of Indian Chinese trained translators.
Indian
Chinese trained translators. I think Indian scholars who are trained in Chinese.
Indian Chinese trained scholars. How to operationalize
The expertise of their works in real life.
actually this as far as translator is concerned, and what we say Indian Chinese trained translators, scholars. So I have seen while my tenure at AEC Training College Center, I've seen the students who are interested, who are hardworking, they can get very good proficiency, imagining proficiency in this Chinese language. In 2 years course, a paper comes directly from SFL, from newspaper, right? A cutting of newspaper comes and they just translate it without referring any dictionary, from their memory, from anywhere. So that exam I have taken, that exam our peers, students are taking. Means that training system has got robust training system. So we cannot say Indian trained. Yeah, we Indian have got that strong training system. And that we have translated. Yeah, I translated Sino-Indian War 1962, right? A complete 500-page single-handedly. And it was written by 43 Chinese experts and translated by myself. I can't say it is 100% correct, but it was translated from A to Z. So you cannot underestimate the power of Indian brain. The supreme in all field. We have shown our might in all field. And as far as Chinese is concerned, this is unquestioned. As far as operationalize is concerned, yeah, of course, we have to give right approach. My quest was to find out how can I do the best. And I found it. I said the corpora I found. That is the best teacher. Right? Go. We have got the bilingual corpora. Even Air Force. I've got a Air Force book. Like Chinese Shaking Heaven. Or like I just can't recollect the name. So that book is there in Chinese. In old Chinese. Simply old characters. And its translation is also given. So this is a very good corpus for Air Force people to master this Chinese. And once you have mastered this type of vocab, this type of document, then you can operationalize, you can use in your operation, you can just do research, you can create something useful yourself. Because you are the creator for yourself. I think no one will come and teach. Yeah, with collaboration somewhere else, like if you go and collaborate with US who are advanced in language training, definitely we can help. But most of the time we have to do our own research. We have to resolve our own issues. How can we resolve? The basic principle of research is firstly understand all components, in depth understand. And by using these components, we can create something new. And this definitely will succeed. So I hope I answered your question. Yes.
Moving on to the next question. So it's from Mr. Rayan Dayal. He basically wants to know how many Chinese characters should one know in order to, for a good start for learning the Chinese language.
Actually, how many characters you should know. Actually, there are two type of exams. HSK exams are there. There are 6 level exams in which they say if you learn 150 characters, right, 150 words, you are at level 1, 300 you are level 2, and 600 you are level 3, and then 1200 4, and 2500 5, and 5000 or more, it is 6 level equivalent to B. So these are the requirement if you learn these words. And which are these words? Earlier when we used to study in college, we don't have, but now we have got the list of these words, useful words, day-to-day words. And if you learn, master these words, yeah, then you will have proficiency. You can communicate in day-to-day situation, and gradually you can develop your skills. So these are requirements, and this varies as per the task, as per the role you are playing, right, in which role you are working. So that is.
Uh, Moving on to the last question of the day, it's from Mr. Nishant Kumar. He basically wants to know the initiatives that the educational institutions must take in order to ensure adequate training of military translators.
Yeah, of course. As far as military translators is concerned, as far required our armed forces is concerned, it is directly linked to the defense of nation. And it is not only the responsibility of our defense forces, but it is the responsibility of each and every citizen of India to defend our nation, to contribute it. So as far as the prime institutions like JNU, like Shantiniketan, DU, they must somewhere start at least 1 or 2 courses on military translation or requirement of armed forces. So whenever they are teaching translation, they should teach a military subject like thematic knowledge. They can also have a course on Chinese PLA. So that will create the interest among the youth. And yeah, definitely in time to come, they can be put in reserve also, creating a pool of reserve people, like in like warlike situation. We use all the sources of the nation for a particular task. So for on that point of view, if we train our civilian students in military subject, 1 or 2 courses like NCC, like on NCC line, so yes, that will definitely help. I said ki whosoever scholars are working in India, I say sometimes I see their topics are very irrelevant for nation. Like some tadpoles in China, right? A very good topic for research, right? What are the variety, how they sound, and all that. But is it worth for India? Is it worth for our nation? It is worth for a scholar investing 4 years, important time in that. No. So whatever topic, whatever research they are taking should be oriented to our national strength, our national interests somewhere. So this will be there. Even research scholars, what university professors need, they need their research to be published in a UGC cared journal. Open a UGC cared journal, right? And say, okay, if you are doing research on military, it will be published. You will find you are just giving orientation to all our professors. They will build up their vocab, and there will be a strong force for us. And there was civil military integration. China is working on this type of studies, civil military fusion or integration, whatever it is called, means using civilian resources in the crisis time for military purpose and military resources for civilian purpose. So that sort of ideas maybe bring into practice. Yes, ma'am. I hope I answered.
Uh, we'll take the next question from Bhavna. So she wanted to know the names of some Indian organizations that specialize on translating and understanding Chinese policies and documents.
Translating Chinese policy and documents.
Yes.
think tanks, in think tanks, we see the researchers who are doing research on China. Definitely, they are doing the same thing. They are translating the documents within their capacity with the help of online tools. They are doing, yes. And then research on China, actually, as far as my knowledge is concerned, yes, this is done. What? No. Actually, what happens, certain things, like I don't have much of knowledge about these type of institutions. But yeah, of course, there are some agencies who are translating, right, Chinese documents, all sort of policy documents, all sort of media. This is for open media intelligence, like information for getting. So this is being done. But what is specific, I don't have any idea about it. Yes. But of course, yes, I'm capable of doing it if you're interested. Yes, we can work in collaboration. We can write joint research where I can translate all these things. The other scholar may see the English part and I can see the Chinese part. And in collaboration, we can create a good paper, right? So that is also possible.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for patiently answering all our questions. Any more questions, we would be kindly sent it to the mail that has been posted in the chat box. We would ensure that the answers would be sent via mail. Sorry for the inconvenience caused. So we would be moving on to our last session. That is, I now invite Ms. Madhumita to deliver the vote of thanks. Over to you, Madhumita. Thank you.
Good evening, sir. I'm Madhumita. I'm also a research officer at C3S. From the entire C3S team, I would like to take this opportunity to propose the vote of thanks. Firstly, I would like to thank Dr. Umesh Kumar Gupta for taking out time from his busy schedule to have a conversation with us. It really helped us form a connection between language and the military. Your presentation was so extensive and comprehensive, sir. It was a highly informative session, and we look forward to engaging in another conversation with you very soon. Secondly, I want to take this opportunity to thank our audience today. Thank you very much for joining the session and raising relevant questions that enriched the engagement. We hope that you found the session useful and informative. I would like to sincerely thank the distinguished members of C3S for joining our session today and their constant support for all our activities. I would like to thank Commodore R.S. Vasan, Director General of C3S, for his unwavering support and guidance to the team. Thank you, sir. Finally, I would like to thank my colleagues, Satna Abraham for her constant patience and guidance, and fellow research officers, Anuntra Rangan and Shruti S for their support. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Umesh, for joining us.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for giving me a
excellent delivery.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you so much. And thanks to ARTRAC and also AEC for joining us. They are the main beneficiaries of your talk.
Thanks, sir. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all for joining. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for a very wonderful presentation.
Thank you, sir.